Wait a
He
minute,
was,
wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. You're telling me that the place where George Washington visited back in the 1790s is a Bojangles now?
yes, the building,
That is hilarious. And that right there is a marketing ploy. I would think that
I
Bojangles would
know,
want to contact you about. That is great.
right.
Okay.
There is a historical marker there right out in right by the Bojangles parking lot, but all that property belonged to my Lee family.
You are listening to Historyman, the platform for historians, curators, and authors to tell their stories of the American Revolution, walk in the footsteps of heroes, and proclaim freedom reigns. On today's episode, we are with Julie Hardaway, chairman of protocol and chairman of the state speaker's staff for the South Carolina Society Daughters of the American Revolution. So welcome, Julie.
Thank you for having me, Eric.
Julie, I want to let you know that I'm really excited about listening to you. You are a great speaker. You were in Camden earlier this year talking about one of my favorite stories is the Edenton Tea Party. And I know that those ladies were very excited to have you. And we're excited to have you talking about some of the patriots that you can trace your lineage back to. And I'm really just going to kind of turn it over to you and let you tell us about some of those stories because that's what we're all about. We're all about telling the real histories of the American Revolution and inculcating people to find that hero that's in all of us and, helping people buy into the American spirit. So thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you for having me. So I joined the DAR in 2006. And it wasn't until my father died in 2002 that I got interested in history because once he was gone, somebody had to pick up the torch and move forward with it, with family history. But my father was German and they were about 3 or 4 generations in this country, German. So I call them newcomers. But my mother's family had been in this in the colonies since 1619. And so my father kept track of all these people. And so it wasn't something surprising to me, when I was learning about these Revolutionary War patriots that founded this country. I grew up knowing most of them and who they were, and we visited their graves and visited their homes if they were still standing. And so my parents were very proud of their genealogy. My dad was a World War II veteran, so very patriotic. We were just brought up to cherish the memory of these people. But I joined the DAR in 2006, like I said, because I had inherited all of these documents from my father that he had been collecting. And I realized when I was looking at them that there were wills and deeds in there from, the late 1700s, early 1800s of people who founded this country. And so I joined the DAR. So your original patriot, you can join on one, and then you can do what's called supplements. So lots of other patriots. So I have 9 patriots that I know of. The first one I joined on was Nathaniel Body, who was born exactly the same day and month and year as George Washington in
Really?
Virginia. Yes. And
So how do you
so
spell his last name?
Boddie.
Okay.
And we say Body. I have other members in the family that call it Bodie, but we pronounce it Body. So he was born in Virginia and moved to Edgecombe County, North Carolina. He was a tobacco farmer. So, once they wore out the land where they were, they had to go find new land. And so he moved down into Edgecombe County, North Carolina, and he was there before the Revolution. In Edgecombe County, he became a member of the Committee of Safety. Now, I don't know if you know what those are, but those are local committees that were formed to enforce non-importation agreements. The colonists had decided they were not going to import things like tea or British fabrics. anything like that, silk that came from the Far East. They weren't going to import those kind of things. And so they enforced and monitored customs, monitored things, imports coming into the colonies. They also organized defense. So they made sure that they had local militiamen. They procured gunpowder and arms for those men. And they punished loyalists or suppressed loyalists. But anyway, and so he was also served in the Senate from North Carolina after the war. He was born 1732, just like George Washington. And he in Edgecombe County, North Carolina, he built a home there probably about 1792. He died in 1797. The house still stands. It belongs to someone in my family who revived it and brought it back to its former glory. And now it's a wedding venue. But anyway, he became what's called the father of Nash County, North Carolina, because he introduced legislation to break off Nash County from Edgecombe County, North Carolina. So anyway, he's probably my most impressive patriot. I have some others.
Let me stop you for just 1 second.
Sure.
If you're going to move on to somebody else, there's a Bodie or Body lighthouse. In fact, you go up on the Outer Banks and you talk to the locals, and they say, "No, you know that you are not from here if you call it Bodie. It's called Body Lighthouse."
Body. Yes,
is that your people?
And we have thought for a long time that was named for somebody in my family, but we've not been able to prove that. But yes, the family was there early on, and so it's very possible that it is.
It's certainly spelled different. You have one D, that has one D, I believe, and you have two D's, right? So
yes, we use two D's. Yes, but the funny thing is so Nathaniel, I believe his brother was John, and he moved to Edgefield County, Edgefield District, South Carolina before the Revolution, and he spells it Bodie. So anybody that's local, I live in Aiken County, South Carolina, but anybody who's local and has that name, Bodie, I know they're related to me, pretty far back, but I know that they're related to me.
Well, it's interesting on spelling during that time. It was kind of a, wishy-washy thing.
Yes.
Anyway, Daniel Webster had not even made the dictionary, certainly, but by that point. So
they didn't have spelling rules. They spelled it like it sounded. So, which
could have been really messed up if you had a Scottish accent or a Welsh accent or a French or a Huguenot accent. I mean, that could really mess your spelling up quite literally in between family members. So, depending on how heavy your accent was.
That's right. So I'm going to move on to South Carolina, if you want me to.
Yeah.
So I have my fifth great grandfather is Russell Wilson, Esquire. He was a justice of the Quorum Court for the king, which means he signed an oath of allegiance to the king. But as soon as the revolution started, he sided with the Patriots. So he served in Captain Michael Watson's company of volunteers on horseback during the Revolution. And
where was that at?
Michael Watson was at Clouds Creek. I don't know if you've heard of the Clouds Creek massacre, but yes, it's down near where I live in South Carolina. But Michael Watson's company, there were 18 mounted militia during the Battle of Dean Swamp, which I'll talk about in a minute. But I have found the pay roster, and there were 30 men on that pay roster during that time period. So, and I can tell you that once I moved back here, I was gone from this area for 26 years, but once I moved back here, I had a real affinity towards the site at Dean Swamp. There's a monument there, a Revolutionary War monument there.
Well, tell our listeners where they would find that monument. Where's Dean Swamp?
it is just outside of Salley, Salley, South Carolina. So it is in Aiken County.
There we go. Yeah.
At the time of the battle, it was in Orangeburg District.
Right. Right.
But anyway, Dean Swamp. I want to talk about that. So I had an affinity for that site, but I didn't really know why. I would go out there every year and lay flowers on July 4th. But so I found the pay roster for Captain Michael Watson's company, and my ancestor was on it. So I thought that was really cool. There was another company with them, militia, that was led by Captain Michael. I'm sorry, Captain William Butler, and they were from Edgefield. There were 15 of those in that cavalry unit. But anyway, I want to talk about Dean Swamp. Dean Swamp was also called Johntown, John, and that was because 3 men named John settled in that area, so they just called it Johntown. But Dean Swamp is the little creek that runs through there. And in May of 1782, there were 2 bullpens there that were holding loyalist prisoners. And so Bloody Bill Cunningham's gang found out that they were being held there, and they were going to go there and bust those loyalists out. And then General Andrew Pickens found out that this was going to happen, and he sent Captain William Butler's company from Edgefield and Captain Michael Watson's company from Clouds Creek. He sent them over there to prevent them from getting those fellows out of there. Well, it ended up, they left at sundown. They got there sometime during the night. Some people say it was May 24th. The monument, I believe, says May 4th. But anyway, it was in May of 1782. And the Patriots were ambushed. And they were also running out of ammunition. So they ended up just charging the men in Bloody Bill Cunningham's gang with their cutlasses. And so it just became hand-to-hand combat. A lot of the loyalists fled into the swamp, even though they were outnumbered. The Patriots were outnumbered 2-1, but these fellows fled into the swamp. 2 of the Patriots lost their lives, including Captain Watson, who was later carried to Orangeburg and passed away there and is buried there. And also on the monument, it calls him Sergeant Vardel, Vardel. So they didn't really know his first name until I found the pay roster about a year ago, when I was just scrolling through things online and found the pay roster. And his name was Thomas Vardel, Vardel. So anyway, both of them were killed. And so there's a monument there, and I'd like to read you what the monument says. It says, animated by determination, courage, and bitter hatred, and armed with sharp cutlasses, they were a formidable foe. They wielded them with telling precision and literally cut them to pieces in one of the goriest battles of the Revolution. Their purpose thwarted by the undaunted defense of the Patriots, the Tories fled into the swamp, leaving their dead to lie where they fell. Their unnumbered graves are scattered up and down the creek. And of course, that's talking about the creek at Dean Swamp. But anyway, I just love that story. I've known about Russell Wilson all of my life, but I did not know what he did. And so things like this, being able to do research, it puts skin on these people for me, and they really come alive. And in the DAR, we say something called the American's Creed every time we have a meeting. And it talks about how these people sacrificed their lives and fortunes. And that really is what they did. They knew that what they were doing was treasonous. They knew that by sticking their necks out like they did, they could be killed, their homes could be burnt, they could be imprisoned, they could lose everything they had. And so we recite the American's Creed every time that we have a DAR meeting, and it reminds us of the sacrifices that these people made.
Well, for our listeners, can you recite that?
Sure. I believe in the United States of America as a government of the people, by the people, for the people, whose just powers are derived from the consent of the governed, a democracy and a republic, a sovereign nation of many sovereign states, a perfect union, one and inseparable, established upon those principles of freedom, equality, justice, and humanity, for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. I therefore believe it is my duty to my country to love it, to support its Constitution, to obey its laws, to respect its flag, to defend it against all enemies.
Fantastic. All right, who's next?
Okay, the next one will be Andrew Lee. So Andrew Lee was born about 1745 in New Jersey. And I told people that he got here as fast as he could.
Is he kin to Richard Lee?
My family likes to say that, but I have no evidence of that at all. If they were related on the other side of the pond.
Okay.
So he came from New Jersey to South Carolina. He had a license from the colony of South Carolina to open a fulling mill, Fulling.
What the heck? What is that?
Well, it's a method of making wool waterproof.
Oh.
So the Scottish people used to do that. The women would do it by hand. They sat at a table and moved the wool, with their hands, and they used urine on it to make it waterproof. But anyway, Andrew Lee and his cousin Levi Manning, Manning, had a license from the South Carolina colonial government, I guess it was, but to open a fulling mill on the Saluda River. And so they came down, had a mill there. They ended up with like a grist mill. They could also do that. And they had a ferry across the river. So in order to cross from one side to the other, you could donate a bag of your meal, after you had it milled. But anyway, they came down to South Carolina, operated that ferry on the Saluda, and also the family had a tavern in Leesville, South Carolina. Leesville was named for his son, John Wilson Lee, who was my fourth great-grandfather. But anyway, there's a historical marker there in Leesville. It's right near the Bojangles, which is where the tavern was. Now, that tavern is where George Washington visited in 1791 on his Southern tour.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that the place where George Washington visited back in the 1790s is a Bojangles now?
Yes, the building.
That is hilarious. And that right there is a marketing ploy. I would think that Bojangles would want to contact you about. That is great.
Right.
Okay.
There is a historical marker there right out right by the Bojangles parking lot. But all that property belonged to my Lee family. And the cemetery that they're buried in is just across the road there behind a church. But anyway, George Washington, I want to go back to him. He had breakfast there that morning with the family. He was traveling from Augusta, Georgia to Columbia, South Carolina, in May, I believe it was May of 1791. But anyway, what I want to tell you is he didn't just happen along there. His half-brother, Lawrence Washington in Virginia, owned the property next to the Rutherford family, and Andrew Lee's wife, her mother was Susanna Rutherford. And Susanna Rutherford was married to Russell Wilson, who I've already told you about. And So the Rutherfords and the Washingtons were neighbors in Virginia. So that's why George Washington stopped by there. He knew there was a family connection. He didn't just happen along and decide to have breakfast there. But anyway, so like I said, Andrew Lee's wife was Ann Wilson, not from the music group, but anyway, we called her Nancy. So Nancy Wilson Lee, she was the daughter of Russell Wilson, who I previously mentioned. I want to talk about Andrew Lee for just a minute. He was best friends with a man named Jacob Smith. Jacob Smith built Flat Grove, which is now in Saluda County, South Carolina. Flat Grove still stands. You can tour that home. And Flat Grove is where James Bonham, Bonham, was born.
Bonham, right?
Yes.
James
yes.
Bonham from the Alamo.
Here they pronounce it Bonham. But so James Butler Bonham, his grandfather was Jacob Smith. Jacob Smith's daughter was Sophia. And anyway, so James Butler Bonham and his cousin, William Barrett Travis, they were the heroes, although they were martyrs at the Alamo.
Texas started in Saluda, didn't it?
Yes, I was going to mention that.
Yes.
It can be said that Texas started in Saluda County.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, Jacob Smith witnessed the will of Andrew Lee, my one of my Patriots. Anyway, so Andrew Lee's wife was Nancy Wilson Lee. She was a spy for the Patriots and carried Patriot messages. Now, I do want to say that the DAR will not accept her as a Patriot anymore because they say there's no proof. They say that she's a local legend. Unfortunately, so many of the women in South Carolina that have DAR chapters named after them are no longer considered patriots by the DAR because there's no proof. So if you're a spy, there's probably not going to be proof.
Probably even less so, that's for sure. Yeah.
Right. But the book that I found her in is called South Carolina Female Patriots of the American Revolution by Nancy Young and Marjorie Diver, Divver. It was printed in 1979. And Nancy Wilson Lee is in that book. My family tradition is, which is also what's in that book, says that she captured one of Bloody Bill Cunningham's gangs, tied him to a landsled, and dragged him to Newberry, where her father lived, Russell Wilson, and he was tried and hung. But she supposedly received a reward for that capture of Bloody Bill Cunningham's gang. And then Andrew Lee passed away, and Nancy Wilson Lee married a man named Nicholas Vaughn. So when she died in 1818 in Edgefield District, her last name was Vaughn.
Spell that.
Vaughan. Vaughn.
Okay. That's a pretty big name in South Carolina too. So that's interesting. Yeah.
I have another female patriot named Agnes Wigham, Wigham. She was born about 1742 in Ireland. And she was living in Burke County, Georgia, when she sold the army, I think it was 200 pounds of beef to feed the troops. So that's what qualifies her as a female patriot. And I descend through her son, William Wigham, who married Mary Carey, Cary. And Agnes Wigham died in 1795 in Burke County, Georgia. I do not know where she's buried, though, unfortunately.
Yeah, what big town is in Burke County, Georgia?
Waynesboro, the bird dog capital of the world.
The bird dog capital of the world?
Yes. Bird dog.
You just can't make this stuff up, girl. All right.
Yep, that's Waynesboro.
Okay.
So I have a couple of other North Carolina patriots. Captain John Williams, born 1737 in Isle of Wight County, Virginia, and Sir, he was paid for militia services. I descend from his daughter Mary Ann, who married William Battle, Battle. William Battle was born 1758 in Edgecombe County, North Carolina. And he was also paid for militia duty during the Revolution. I descend from his daughter, Elizabeth Williams Battle, who married Nathan Van Bodie, Boddie. And they moved from North Carolina to Warren County, Georgia, and then ended up in Troup County, Troupe, Troup County, Georgia, where their home still stands, Nathan Van Bodie. And Elizabeth Williams Battle, the daughter of the Patriot, William Battle. I want to mention her sister, who was Mary Ann Battle, and she was First Lady of Alabama. She was married to Governor of Alabama, Henry Watkins Collier. And I'd like to tell you, when I went to Alabama a few years ago to their archives, all I was looking for was a portrait of the governor, Henry Watkins Collier. And so I was wandering around in their archives on the second floor where they had all the portraits of governors. And lo and behold, I found Mary Ann Battle Collier's portrait there. She was the only female up there with all of those governors. She was First Lady, and she had 4 of her children in the portrait. And
Nice.
the baby in the portrait had a handful of his brother's hair in his hand. So I just loved that portrait. It was so true to life. But, you know, she must have been well loved to have that portrait done and have it hung there, you know, in Alabama in such a place of honor like that. I want to talk about Colonel Benjamin Exum. He's kind of important to South Carolina. He was born in 1725, so he was much older than these other ones, in Isle of Wight County, Virginia, but he was lieutenant of a company of North Carolina militiamen, and then he became a colonel of the 2nd North Carolina Regiment of Militia. So he was commanding troops at the disastrous Battle of Camden, which you know all about that. Yeah. So he was commanding troops there. He died in 1789. And I descend from his daughter, Tabitha, who married Benjamin Smith. I have a few other Georgia patriots. One is William McKinney. Sometimes it's spelled Mckenney. Sometimes it's spelled Mckinney. But he was a soldier in Colonel William Candler's Refugee Regiment, and they fought under Colonel Elijah Clark.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Clark County, Georgia, where the University of Georgia is located, and Elijah Clark State Park. Anyway, he commanded troops of Georgia militia. But William McKinney died in Baldwin County, Georgia in 1813. So right about the time that the War of 1812 was going on. I descend from his son, John McKinney, who married Julia Ann Hunt, Hunt. And John McKinney represented Talbot County, Talbot, Talbot County, Georgia, in the Confederate House of Representatives. And I feel like he was doing the same thing that he thought his father was doing in 1776, and that is defending his own state against a faraway, money-hungry government. I also have a fellow named Edmund Byne, Byne. He was born in King and Queen County, Virginia, about 1733. You know, the established church at that time was the Church of England, but he became a Baptist, and his family thought he was crazy, so they put blisters on his head. There's something called this liquid from a blister beetle, And I think they put it on the head to try to release his evil spirits. But anyway, he stayed a Baptist all of his life, and he became a Baptist minister. But I want to tell you a little bit about him. He moved to Kentucky from Virginia before Kentucky became a state. It became a state in 1792. And he had a fort there to protect the settlers from Indian attacks. But it was called Byne Station, Byne, Byne Station. And he would have been there about the time of the last battle of the Revolution, which was the Battle of Blue Licks. He came to Kentucky with Daniel Boone. I think that they probably came with something called the Traveling Church. That was a lot of Baptists that left Virginia and settled in Kentucky. So he also became involved in a legal battle with another of the founders of Kentucky named Simon Kenton. And so he decided that the history books just say that Edmund Byne decided that Kentucky was disagreeable with him. So he owned a lot of property there, which he left to his two son-in-laws and two daughters. And he moved from there to Georgia. The history books say that he had an invitation from the governor of Georgia to come there and preach the gospel. So he sailed to Georgia and then settled in Burke County, Burke, Burke County, near Blythe, Blythe. And he started a church called Hopeful Baptist. And I was there in 2014 for their 200th anniversary.
Spell that again. I didn't quite get that. What was that?
Hopeful, Hopeful. Okay. Mm-hmm. But I want to tell you what I think is so funny about the Reverend Edmund Byne. There's a historical marker there at Hopeful Baptist, and it calls him a statesman of the Revolution. Well, when I started doing research to find out what he did to be claimed as a patriot, I found out that he donated alcohol. He donated whiskey to the troops. So, like any good Baptist, he had to get rid of his liquor. So he donated it to the troops, which is what qualified him as a patriot, but it qualified me in the DAR. But anyway, he had to give up horse racing and dancing and drinking alcohol when he became a Baptist.
Well, we all make sacrifices, don't we?
That's right. But anyway, he died in 1814. I descend from him through his third wife, Anne Lewis. Anne Lewis was a member of the Meriwether and Lewis families from, the Lewis and Clark.
Well, they started their trek. Lewis and Clark started their trek down in Kentucky, right? So that would make sense.
Yes, in Louisville, yes, from right there on the Ohio River. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I descend from the Reverend Edmund Byne and his wife, Anne Lewis, through Catherine, who was married to William Ross. And William Ross was the son of another Baptist minister, Reverend Francis Ross of Hancock County, Georgia. The last patriot I want to talk about is Roger Lawson, Lawson. The Lawsons came into Cecil County, Maryland, I think in about 1712. They were Scots-Irish Presbyterians. They ended up just over the line in Pennsylvania. And then they came down the Great Wagon Road into North Carolina, Lunenburg County, Rowan County, and then down into Spartanburg. Moore, South Carolina, was named for one of the people in the Lawson family. The Moores and the Lawsons and the Berrys, Barry, they all intermarried. But Roger Lawson moved on down from Lunenburg County, Lunenburg County, Virginia, into Jefferson County, Georgia, which was called Queensborough, Queensborough. So Queensboro, he was a magistrate in 1776. He was an inspector of provisions in 1778. He furnished horses for the Patriots. It said that he suffered depredation and was commissioner of roads in 1783. So very active in his community.
So where is Queensboro?
Well, today it's called Louisville.
Georgia.
Yes, Louisville in Jefferson County, Georgia. And when I lived in Kentucky, there's Louisville, which is in Jefferson County, Kentucky. But the one in Georgia was named after the one in Kentucky. Louisville, Georgia was the capital of Georgia. It was the third capital of Georgia from 1796 to 1806.
Okay. All right.
And so he lived there during that time. He died in July of 1801. And his family cemetery there is what became now known as the Old Capitol Cemetery. So there's a senator there named James Gunn. He was a brigadier general during the Revolution. So there are other people unrelated to my family in that cemetery, but that cemetery began as the Lawson family cemetery. Unfortunately, it was hit by a tornado. I don't remember when it was. It might have been in the 1940s or 50s, and all of the tombstones were destroyed. I say all of them. Senator James Gunn, his original marker is there inside of a brick fence. But anyway, I descend from Roger Lawson through his second wife, Margaret McGill, McGill, and their daughter, Mary Lawson, who married Michael Burke, Burke, and he came here from Ireland. His father was a Presbyterian minister, the Reverend Charles Burke. But anyway, that's about it.
What are some other battles they were involved in that you know of?
The ones in North Carolina were at the Battle of Guilford Courthouse.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't really know the battles that the Lawson boys were in, but Roger Lawson had 6 sons, and all of them served during the Revolution.
Very good. Well, how can people get a hold of you if they want to bring you in to speak at their gathering?
They can send me a Facebook message, Julie Hardaway, on Messenger, or they can email me at JN like Nancy, JN Hardaway, HARDAWAY at BellSouth, BELLSOUTH.net.
You certainly go a lot of places and you have a lot of hats that you wear. And we feel so very honored that you came on to the Historyman podcast. So thank you very much.